Okay, you guys are good.
We're good? Okay, and just, I know Dr. Saban will be joining us late, us in a few minutes. She had a, conference call with the US Senator at 11 o'clock about FAFSA. So, she had to, take that call, but she will be joining us as soon as she's done. So Ms. Hooper will be conducting the meeting until she gets here as, vice chair, so. Better call it to order and I will call it. I call this meeting to order. Dr. Cable. Ms. Carlina, present. Mr. Castile.
Here.
Ms. Coleman. Here. Ms. Gaines. Ms. Hooper. Here. Ms. Lawson. Here. Mr. Myers.
Here.
Mr. Payne. Here. You do have a quorum. So we'll now move on to introductions and announcements. We do not have any today. So moving right along. Are there any corrections to the past meeting? If there are no corrections, then the minutes are approved. Well, you have to take a vote. Oh, it's not approved. Do we have a second?
I second.
Since there are no corrections, the minutes are approved. And now we'll move on to the public comment. Andrew, do we have a public comment?
No comments.
The next order in the meeting is program update. Next, we'll have college access, success. Good morning. And Shane is going to kick us off.
Good morning, everybody. I'm a little under the weather, just waiting for the screen to be shared. There we go. Sorry I can't be there with you.
Hope you feel better, Shane.
Thank you. I feel better today than I sound. I picked up something at the Rex parade. Okay, here we go. So for our agency events and assistance, so since July, when we restart our count, we are at 318 events, 274 of those face-to-face, 44 virtual. We're at 210 virtual office hours, tops retention remaining the most popular of those. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. For our professional development, have focused on ACT, our 529 savings programs, and the impact that the better FAFSA is going to have on that, how we can enhance accessibility for Zoom and other digital experiences, how we can implement AI into the work that we do, and then what we can do to work with students with the FAFSA for those who are incarcerated. And in the coming months, we're going to hear a lot more about the work that we'll be doing with that student population. So we'll be seeing more professional development in this area. Next slide. Ebony.
All right, thanks, Shane. So February 5th through 11th was our FAFSA Frenzy Week. We had mentioned this event probably at previous advisory board meetings, but basically with the launch of the Better FAFSA, we knew that there were some efforts, some challenges to try to get it. So a nice way of saying it. And so what we did is that we put out a call to our post-secondary institutions, and very grateful for the ones that answered that call to do FAFSA Frenzy. So basically what they did was kind of reminiscent of College Bowl Sunday era, where the institutions would have the FAFSA event, and then the, whatever community was close to them would be able to go to that event. So there were a total of 19 institutions, I believe 33 events total across the state for FAFSA Frenzy. WAFB did a wonderful job of providing coverage for those events. And so it was a great, these are just some of the posters that you see, but each institution kind of went all out and like designing their poster. We shared it on our social media sites. We shared this with our counselors to let them know, because there was some concern. We did our professional school counselor webinars last year. They voiced concern that, in spring we have testing, we're not going to have enough time. So this was kind of a help to them as well, that hey, events are going to be happening. Check out which ones are close to you and share this information with your parents, that they can go there and also get FAFSA completion assistance as well. Next slide. So for this particular, for the state policy leaders, this meeting, the January meeting, actually coincided with the announcement that there were going to be additional delays to the FAFSA. So this was a very spirited meeting that we had last month. And basically most of it centered around that delay and those changes to those tables to calculate SAI. Of course, they forgot to account for inflation. And so that was, as they work to get all that stuff updated, that's pretty much why there's this second delay. So most of the conversation, the chat is literally like blowing up for we were on the call. So that's Frank Baldwin with NASDAQ. And one of the jokes that he said is that smoke, like in his background photo, is like that smoke coming out of my ears. So this is a really good way for different different states to kind of share feedback about what issues they're having with the FAFSA. And one of the things that we were able to do is that we were able to share information about some of the issues that Chris Lawson mentioned from a counselor's perspective, that they can't see that year in that, that email address that goes out to them, so they're not able to confirm if it's like 23-24 or 24-25. So hopefully they're gonna keep that up the chain. Hopefully we'll see, if there's some edits to that. Next slide. And then this is, of course, y'all remember Wyatt, our, digital FAFSA advisor, our virtual FAFSA advisor, and so they were able to provide some really nice data for us, 1 month after we had kind of kicked things off. And so it shows you like by parish, you know, what percentage of users have been using Wyatt. And then one of the things that we also saw is about half of, or almost half of the students were referred to Wyatt, or they knew about Wyatt from their high school counselor. So again, the counselor communications that we sent out, try to let them know, you know, this is what's happening, these are the efforts that we're putting forth. And so I'm happy to see that they have been sharing this information with Wyatt. A little over half of the users are high school students. However, Benefits Data Trust has recently kind of revamped Wyatt to also include those students that are renewing. So last week, Kylie joked that it was our Valentine's Day gift to students. We tested probably roughly about 45,000 students for our top cohort. Why? With the decision tree to let me know, you know, to FAFSA, to do, you know, nothing. Actually get the top of line application, but basically putting the option out before them and letting them know if you do need FAFSA application assistance. Here's why it they assist. So we're excited about that as well. Next. And Bill Devon, which many of us are familiar with, he is the Senior Director of Data and Strategic Initiatives for NCAN. They are working on basically trying to get more data around mandatory FAFSA completion. And so, of course, we were one of the first states to kind of lead in that aspect, and we've gotten multiple requests from states all over the country, basically, how would you do it, kind of what is the blueprint? So Louisiana is viewed as a leader in that aspect. And so because of the frequency of people reaching out, Bill and Connor, Shauna, we often kind of put our heads together sometimes. We'll reach out and say, well, hey, we have an information that you can share with other states. And so what he's finding is that those requests for information is kind of outpacing the actual availability of data. And so he's trying to kind of pull stuff together. So we'll have like a resource to share with other states that are considering universal FAFSA. Next. And we have several of our team members that were on this call that are actually in here. But April coordinated a meeting with the Department of Correction. Of course, you'll remember that we have our Justice Involved grant that we got through the Ascendium and NCAN. And so we met with the Department of Corrections to kind of see what kind of support that they need for those justice involved individuals. And so this first initial meeting, we met to discuss potential partnerships, how we can support them and support justice impacted, justice involved individuals. And so we should have another meeting coming up with them pretty soon, not only just with individuals that may be incarcerated, but also those individuals that are like in reentry program. So really excited about the direction that this is going in. We actually, I think, internally tomorrow to kind of look at next steps and how we really want to lay things out with the grant. And so Danielle and April were both sitting behind me, kind of serve as the front leads for this particular this grant. And so they do a lot of reading, do a lot of like meeting and roundtables and things of that nature. This was one of the pieces of literature that they shared. So as a group, after they meet, you know, sit back and debrief. April has actually started a kind of a book club within the agency, just so, you know, again, LOSFA 2.0, that it's more than past student engagement, you know, the entire agency, where can you use your voice to kind of help and brainstorm how we're going to do outreach with justice impacted individuals. And this was one of the pieces of literature that they shared, that we shared with, just to be able to kind of see what does it take to meet the needs of those populations. One of the things that we learned in one of our meetings is that Department of Corrections, they will do like outreach, those trainings, and they actually invited us to participate in one of them, where you basically are an inmate per day and you go to all these different tables, which are like, you know, banks, schools, And basically you get a random card that tells you, you know, this is your background, and you get to see and experience kind of real time what sort of challenges that they face. And that is a good way to kind of understand how to help those individuals. Because, you know, if you haven't experienced it, sometimes it disconnects. And so, you know, we're just looking forward to continuing that partnership so that we can continue to see how we can, that particularly now that we have this program to help us. Next. And this again, it was April, and several of our other team members that were able to help her. Again, they're behind me, but this particular webinar was for those individuals that are MJ Foster eligible, and of course, some of those students with the funding situation may not have access to MJ Foster funding. And so April and our other team members had this webinar basically to help them talk about identifying like other sources of aid, like, hey, you may not have MJ Foster this semester, but these are other sources of aid that you can may be eligible for to help kind of like close that gap for those students. Next. And with our communication efforts, we have started our spring texting campaign again, texted by Wyatt and FAFSA Dual. We have also texted out information about the FAFSA in general. And then also for our top recipients, directing those students to the Student Hub. This is where you can find your top status for the spring. And then this week should have our top 10 recipients for 2023. We'll start our campaign for those students. Of course, their deadline to enroll full time. It's fall 2024. So we're looking forward to that. And then with our counselor communications, again, we just try to stay in contact with our counselors, make sure that they're up to speed. That includes changes to the FAFSA, any updates to the FAFSA, letting you know about our tax processing webinars that are going to be happening in a few weeks. Again, as I mentioned, we also shared Wyatt with them to have them share with our students and our families. And I will turn it back over to Shane.
Thanks, Zeb. Okay, so for our partnership updates, for the second year, we participated in the Girl Scouts Smart Cookie U. This year, however, we were the culminating event of Smart Cookie U, and they extended our time from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And so we were able to spend more time on aligning with what it was that they do in order to earn badges. Kayla did a wonderful job of going through the program, making sure that we were touching on everything. And then we had a group of our advocates who were there as well. And so we focused on, you know, budgeting and financial literacy, education, college access. And so it was very, very engaging. And so this is going to serve as a model for partnerships with other organizations of what we can do, these customized programs. And we've actually been approached by another organization who has requested this as well. And so hopefully next month, we'll be giving you another update on this. So next slide, please. So for the Livingston Collegiate Academy, we have a new partnership with them as well, and they're going to be part of a pilot program, one of 20 high schools nationwide through the College Match Day program. And so we will be working with them, the juniors, in order to get them prepared for making that college choice decision whenever it comes to their senior year. And so we'll be looking at what those best practices are, what's worked, how we can expand that model. And then we were going to work on an implementation kit to provide to our school counselors as well. You know, we're always looking for ways to develop new resources and to support our school counselors. And so I think this is going to be a really great program that we can offer to our high school students. Next slide. So for our social media update, we are from January, the month of January, our impressions, that's the number of times the content is displayed. Remember that number is skewed because it doesn't count Facebook except for paid advertising. So that it doesn't really tell us what our actual impressions are. Our reach, though, that means the number of individuals who've seen our content is almost at 200,000 for the month. So that's fantastic. And then our engagement, the number of interactions. So that's going to be likes, comments, and shares. is over 25,000. Next slide. So our popular posts on social media, the FAFSA frenzy was very popular, and then information about the Better FAFSA launching. We have been putting out a lot of content about the Better FAFSA and ways that LOSFA can help and support students, parents, and school counselors as well. We've also been pushing out information on Wyatt, and we are going to do some paid advertising for Wyatt as well, just to make sure. We've also sent out information to our post-secondary partners. And I've been speaking with one of the provosts at one of the universities and had dinner with him and talked about ways that LOSFA can do programs outside of FAFSA Frenzy Week as well. So we're just making sure that everyone understands that LOSFA is here to assist with anything that the institutions need, that counselors need, in order to help students with FAFSA completion and submission. And then we have also another popular post has been the Rockefeller Scholarship. And you're going to also be seeing more content about our specific scholarship and grant programs as well, working with SG. And then we'll be working with Audit too, in order to get information out there through various channels about processing things on their end so that we can help hopefully reduce any audit findings as well with our programs. Next, please. And then here is our count right now for our followers on our social media platforms. Facebook, of course, remaining the most popular. X, who knows what's going to happen with that platform. Something seems to be happening every day. So we'll look at other ways that we can reach our audience as well, and then hopefully continue to grow our followers on Instagram. Next. So from December 22nd to January 22nd, this is our web page traffic. So a total of over almost 105,000 page views, 50,000 sessions, and then 36,000 users. So 36,000 individuals who looked at the content on our website. Facebook continues to be the top referral place in order to get to our website. Student Hub, that we've seen an uptick in activity on the Student Hub, and then direct and organic are the most ways that people are finding our website. So next. And then we've had some media mentions as well. So we have been reached out to about issues relating to FAFSA delays and updates, and then ways that LOSFA has been helping with that. And we got a lot of really great coverage related to our FAFSA Frenzy events as well. So the word is out there about what LOSFA is doing to help and assist. And we're going to continue doing that so that we can tell the story of, why college is worth it, what resources you have available to help you pay for that, how to discover your pathway, LOSFA's comprehensive advising services, how to connect with career paths, and then making sure that we're telling the story of what it is LOSFA does and how LOSFA can help. Next slide. And that is all. So thanks, everybody. Looking forward to see you all in person at the next meeting.
We'll now move on to student engagement.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start out by sharing information from our Salesforce database. I keep you engaged in the work of our competency and advising officers for advanced vision. So for the month ending January 31, at the time of the submission of these reports, there were 198 cases that have been open since July. I won't point that out, but we had 111 cases that were currently open, 87 that are closed. To date, that number has been updated to 132. We have 99 open and 124. So we see that our TAOs are actively tending to the needs of our students that are referred for comprehensive advisement. Next slide. Just to break that down a bit further, what we're looking at as the case management system is intended to support the work of advising. You see the bulk of our referrals to cases by type is that of advisors that assist us there. And next in line are complex issues that are being handled, as I described last month, by our outreach coordinators there. Next slide. I'd like to point out to us the cases by reason, just kind of take a little deep dive into the data that we have available to us to understand and see what the trends are as we're serving scholarships here. So for during this period of time there, you see that the number one reason, the highest reason for referral has that been financial aid options. How big? You know, our Gospel 2.0 spotlights talking about alternatives to the MJ Foster. So many of our service needs have been just addressing that. As indicated, the purple screen's not showing too well, but that's 32% of our reasons is focused on financial options, financial aid options. Next in line, that teal is 18%. Next in line, and that is reasons unknown. That's why I share that as we continue to learn the nuances of our database. Again, in line with the November, we have multiple service sectors, our IAOs, intake assistance officers, CAOs, and our outreach coordinators. So we're making sure that with the integrity of the design of the platform that we are utilizing it to capture the data. And so we are definitely making sure that reasons are denoted as well. The next third highest was that light teal, just 10 of those 111 cases represents 9%. That's still going for cases that are referred because of financial aid there. Next slide, Jenny. Okay, just to give you an update on the report on the work of our student network groups. January kicked off the spring 2024 series, whereby we again the concept of all 7 of our disciplines, the third Monday of the night, as illustrated in this slide. There's the breakdown of schools represented. In a particular gathering, we had Dr. Ron, the hip hop doc, with you. He's a medical doctor, but he also happens to be vice chair of some university's board of supervisors. But in this role here, he was sharing, kicking the special students, encouraging them to set goals, do vision boards, craft their own personal statements of affirmations. What launched out of this meeting through the work of this gathering, our engineering students said, hey, we'd like to huddle and some more work on vision board. So our CAOs, when we designed them, we're doing individual one-on-one advising and counseling, yes, but also that small group advice. So we're excited about that request that came from those students. And so our facilitators and our staff are working to schedule that. But also what happened in this event, very dynamic, very fluid, unexpected, impromptu. We had a peer that just really gave us some good fodder to see the needs. We had a student to inquire about staff eligibility. Again, part of our partnerships in our network have a CFS rep that comes in monthly and it's just availing herself to connect with our students, make sure that they are applying and utilizing the resources that are available to them. So from this one question, for this one parent, working a dynamic Q&A sessions that now beyond our any students that are affiliated with our network or any student that inquire about staff eligibility. This particular rep will give them their cell number, a walk through the application process to make sure that they make use of that. Other opportunities to partnership with, we are getting ready to go up this weekend to the Council on Student Body Board, Student Body Presidents. They're meeting, this rep is a part of the panel addressing, food insecurity. She will be holding those school educators, regards to how that information can be further disseminated and just what is the access there. So awesome things still continue to develop through our student network. Next slide. That's a fun question.
Didn't Dr. Whitfield, and I'm mistaken that he actually was making rounds? Which meeting was it that he was actually making his rounds while he was engaging with his students? So they got a chance to see him in action, and that's another core premise of LOSFA 2.0 and what we're trying to do. You need to be able to see it and not just say it looks like what it looks like on TV and you know that's a match for you. That's a lot of wasted money in higher ed. And so this is, I thought that is what you did, which was phenomenal.
Doing this presentation was fun and animated, just hearing the background and the voices of the announcements and paging. And so students really saw that it's on site. So you can see just that screenshot there. Thank you. So the next slide, Jenny, I wanted to share further, again, with partnership with the Association of United Ways. We have procured that kind of 2-1 contracts to have a public search engine. What they have been doing is providing us with monthly updates. What I want to just kind of run through quickly is their 2023 end of year tabulation of all of the hits and the visits to that search engine, which is specific to LOSFA. Again, there are a lot of other agencies that are utilizing 2-1, but this primarily focuses on what we've asked to do, hide the information that our students are needing. And so this is straight through our portal. So next slide, Jen. So when we look at the analytics that's being shown here, you see assistance being the number one, and then they're in categories. Basic needs primarily is what stems out there. But what caught my attention is, and you can't even see, but I'm going to emphasize it there, is that it's consistent to what we're finding even with our case advisors, company advisors, and what's being documented and tracked and reported in our sales force. Number one reason students are going into 2-1 is for additional financial aid resources. Their basic needs get met there. And having the different categories of searches. Jay, next slide. And so on this final slide in the 2-1 platform, it shows by geography throughout the state. Image on the right, the graphic on the right. See what looks like back groups. This is why there's such a heavy volume of searches there. It's the primary tool of our comprehensive advising office, where they're located. But interesting enough, if you look at the other heavily populated areas of that mapping, north, west, in that Shreveport area, Orleans, southeast part of the state, and then to that lower. When our CAOs are doing outreach, they are also connecting students. But outreach meaning not just the FAFSA presentations or the TOPS presentations, but just encountering the individuals that are in direction to slow it down. All right, and next slide. With regards to our career exploration, that third bucket of our LOSFA 2.0 model, our employer engagement coordinator, Tanya, is present here as a part of our LOSFA 2.0 spotlight. One of our global partners, EBSCO, had reached out to us to put a pipeline of IT professionals. They specifically gave us the criteria of what they're looking for, and Tanya, through her communications channels and what have you, have met with certain students, and they are on pipeline for being selected for their summer internship. That's a global entity, but will allow students to do their internships remotely. I think we have about 3 that are good candidates. So we're excited about this event, this particular global employer. As we wound up student engagement, next slide, I'm going to highlight the work of our employee customer engagement specialists over there, doing well with our slide advancement. coming out of our Mardi Gras season, and Jenny and her team, did a phenomenal time. Tasking, just coordinating Mardi Gras activities. Pictures here are, I didn't know we had so many varieties. But for the 2 week period of time, we had taste sampling of various key things. And so, we're happy to share with you guys, staff voted and Robin, our legal staff attorney, one with her king cake, or say caramel will be.
I would like to say,
But we
I
also-
did not think that I voted. Oh, point.
Correct.
I went to line up myself on this sector.
And so we also had a, door decorating contest.
Yes, ma'am. Float your door. Each division submitted a door decoration that they put together, and we collaborated with Veterans Affairs in the building. They came and judged for us, and we had 3 winners.
Student engagement walked away with first prize.
It's independent judgment.
Yes, external independent judges that, for this contest. Second place went to, Tennessee. Third place winner was our startup division.
Yay.
Thank you all for the cooperation and just part of our engagement of our staff. Thank you. That's our report. Yes.
I just wanted to remind you that should you ever need an outside judge, the chairman of LOSFA,
I will hang you up, Miss Mary.
not me, it ain't Dr. Cable.
Okay.
Dr. Cable, anything Mardi Gras, parades, beads, cakes. Have I missed any categories that we?
I will be contacting you, ma'am.
The next king cake tasting. I was over days.
Question about the exploration, and the connecting to like these outside organizations. Who are the students that you're targeting for like this particular internship?
Well, we are doing a mix of their IT things.
Right.
2 year and 4. Is that right? And I'll just read it.
It's, junior to senior, students, and it was IT.
So those are individual letters in your database that you're targeting?
But they're really in a network group, like they're receiving comprehensive advice,
Okay.
which we are awarded because of the ask and short of time. And they're like, can you budget? Like, in those, you have that. Picture. And so we did send out a blast, was it our, to restore, you know.
Our colleges, we have Handshake as a platform, and so I was just trying to think through like how we can get tapped into similar
Please
opportunities.
do the conversation, because this is a capstone, key part of LOSFA 2.0. So this is not just, we can come out and do the PowerPoint and tell you what it takes to get our financial aid program. That was the original law. That should sail a long time ago. Because students, as you can see by the data, have significantly more problems. Yes, they have financial aid problems, but they're saying, I know what you have, but that isn't enough to cover my basic needs. What else do you have? They're also wanting these connections to the internships, the pipeline, and what we find is employers are wanting, no, don't just give me a generic list. I want to know who you know, that you've either vetted or had some experience with. So that's part of that career exploration to help you take a more direct approach to higher education and not waste money and get to be a junior or senior and then figure out this is not a matching fit for you. So it's a part of our overall strategy, as well as some holistic advising services. And I would just like to give a huge shout out to this team, because we just launched the Salesforce to be able to track the cases, and we did an event which will be spotlighted today, and you'll see the significant increase in, no, this is the most intensive level of advising we have, but it is not just How many hours does it take to get into house? AI can do that, right? Or can you check my status and tell me why I haven't gotten paid? A human on the phone can do that, right? And then it's like, no, I need you to check and see why I can't see this. That's the mid-level. But then, as I affectionately like to call it, the what had happened was, which is like, oh, wait, how many problems do you have? A list. And that's very real that our students are experiencing. That's your comprehensive advising. So we actually have a triage of 3 different levels of assistance. That's in addition to outreach. So just really super proud of all the folks in this room that are making that happen, and totally willing to partner and coach relationships.
My instinct tells me that among the states, Louisiana has to be, you have to be at the top for doing all this. That there are not many other states that replicate the model of services that you are on.
In fact, our team, several of the folks in this room went to NCAN. We took so many people to NCAN, we had our own reserve table. 2 reserve tables. And so we were kind of shocked, because usually it's like the Hunger Games. Whoever gets up the earliest tries to save a seat for a lot of people. But our team presented this model to a packed house. We have the pictures to prove it. And they basically said, yeah, come back next year and tell us your numbers. So we didn't have a lot of, oh, we do that, we do that, we do that. Yeah. We had oh, y'all really think y'all are gonna pull that off? Yeah. Well, prove it. And of course, the team was like, oh, challenge accepted. Right? So yes, they definitely are. We are trying to do that and integrate AI into this, not to send people home. We don't never have enough people to do this work justice, but to free up folks to take care of the more complex questions while the AI takes care of the, no, that's that answer. There's really no nuance there. So yes, this team in this room has done an outstanding job.
So thank you.
I'm just a tad proud of this. Yeah.
Morning, everyone. I'm on Louisiana Gold Grant, what you see on the screen is as of the fall semester, but the schools have, passed their 14 flag states, so basically, we've had billings of $4.2 million so far this spring. The remaining allocation is at 34 million. We process Gold Grant every Thursday. So this week, our specialists in that ambulatory mission, we contacted those schools who have not yet billed, because we do have a March 24th billing deadline for the Gold Grant. And today is the 20th, so that's less than a month. Well, right at a little bit over a month left for billing. February for all dispersed, nearing the end. So we're working on getting that done. With the John R. Justice program, we do have a more current update for that program. We have dispersed all of the funds for John R. Justice. We had 13 applicants, but on the prosecutor side, we ended up with 9 agreements. So we had an additional $4,200 that was dispersed. So each prosecutor that received $4,200 got an additional $466.66 sent to their student loan debt payment. So we have 6 cents left over, and that's gonna just be tagged on to administrative costs, but get approved from the feds for that. So now each prosecutor, instead of getting $4,200, had $4,666. Our public defenders had $8,400 for their account. So we're now taking applications for the 24 application cycle, and that application period will end on April 30th. We have 7 public defender applications now, which is for 5 awards. And right now we have 9 prosecutors. So our specialist in that area, Chris Nelson, is working with, the CAS group gave us, developed a news release that we're using. And we're trying to target all applicants in North Louisiana. We found that we have fewer applications in the Shreveport Monroe area. And once we had feedback that a lot of those public defenders and prosecutors have been in their jobs for a long amount of time, so they don't have the student loan debt that's what about newer prosecutors in South Louisiana have, so we're trying to increase the applicant pool in that area so that we can disperse it, because those awards will go up to 10,000 for our public defenders for this year and 5,000 for our prosecutors. So that's back to where the program was when we first started, giving more money, which will increase the applicant pool for people getting their loan debt repaid. And then for this year that we just dispersed, we had our first federal public defender. So that's something new that we're happy to report on that particular front. Next screen. MJ Foster, those are the eligibility numbers, but we just had a meeting yesterday with our work group. And at this point, out of the total allocation of after administrative costs, we're at 9.975 million. We have dispersed, we processed over $8.5 million. We have a pending disbursement of 1.1 million for those continuing students in the same zip code and started their program prior to February 15. We'll disperse that 1.1 million. So we'll have roughly $300,000 available after all that has been processed for funding to last us through the fiscal year. So that's the kind of the status of MJ Foster. On the youth challenge, that's still the same, it's stagnant because we don't have any additional funds. The Louisiana National Guard, which provides administration of that program. They are seeking additional funding from the Louisiana legislation. Session starts March 11th. So we hopefully will see more funding coming to the Go Youth Challenge program so that they can resume those students who finish the Youth Challenge program and get funding for that particular program. Are there any questions about the programs that I can discuss?
And again, the other part of that of LOSFA 2.0 is the services, of course, the phenomenal job that Ms. Paul does, that IT does in assisting her with the part of, okay, we both prepared to provide. That's to provide and paying the bill and then getting information out about who is eligible. So again, big team effort that our group is doing. We're gonna combine next with your permission, Chair Cable, the TOPS update and the executive director's update, which is the TOPS mid-year update, because one is basically, we just go seamlessly in. One is basically the current funding status, and then we want you all to be able to see the document that we send to legislative staff. They're quite appreciative that gives you when you look at this, right, people start to ask, where are they? What are they doing? Why is the funding being utilized at a rate that is less than in the past? And so you need to proactively answer those questions. That is what this is. And so I'm going to let Fred start, Donna and Connor, you all come on up and then we'll go through this in tag team.
The information on the screen is a little legal and tends to change rather quickly this time of year. So each of you should have an out of more information. Ran the numbers this morning. And most schools have billed in the spring. We're showing a 3% decrease in bill last year. And some of you may remember that last year this time we were showing a 7% decrease from the prior year. So TOPS is still decreasing, but definitely slower, and we expect it to slow down next year. LSU's billings are down about 3% from last year. UL system is down 2.4%. Southern hasn't billed for spring yet, nor have they had next year, but they will show. LCTC is currently down 10% for the timing of their billings, just less consistent than the 4 year. So let's give it a month and see where we go. Yeah, it's all legal. And TOPS allocation for this year, including summer. So,
Do we have that on the website? Did we go ahead and post that? I thought we were posting.
Sorry.
Post on the website that summer TOPS, the Because we take the form down until we know that it's gonna be available.
That form is up.
It's up, that's what I
Yeah, I
thought,
mean,
that you all had already done.
We had said last meeting that,
Yes,
it
that's
was
what I thought.
available and,
Just checking.
I had forgotten, but last year we actually took the year off the form, so the form, the student actually fills in the summer. But it did say 2023 TOPS summer payment request form, and I had IT change that just to say TOPS summer payment request.
Yeah.
But in the future, if we get into a situation where we know we will not have funding, IT can go in there and take that out.
All right, Brett, you wanna lead us off? First of all, I wanna just give a huge shout out to the tremendous amount of work for the people that at this table that put this together. This is a lot. So there's Robin looking at it, Brett looking at it, Shauna and Connor pulling the data using the National Student Clearinghouse data as well as LOSFA files. As you know, National Student Clearinghouse charges by the pool. Like you pull 5 students, you're gonna get charged for 5 students. So you don't want to pull students that you already have data on. So they have to sift through who we have data on, who we don't have data on, and then that gives us these trends. So first question that we often get by the legislature and stakeholders. Okay, you can see that there's $8.5 million. It looks like it's just hanging out there at TOPS. Why is TOPS being underutilized? Well, that's an onion. And there are several different reasons. There is no one reason. So that's what the purpose of this report. So Brad, if you'll start us off with the trends that we're seeing in incoming classes and outgoing classes.
Starting
On the first page.
Starting about 6 years ago, we had some really large incoming classes for TOPS. We had 3 years of those very large those classes are now our outgoing classes, and they're being replaced by smaller incoming classes. So when you see the large increases in TOPS, especially last year, those are huge outgoing classes being replaced by smaller and smaller classes. There's smaller graduating classes. There are qualifying for TOPS. Of those qualifying most years, there have been a decrease in acceptance. So those are the overarching issues of outgoing.
Yeah, that's really your elevator speech right there. So then, you know, you give an elevator speech to the legislature, but we don't like to give elevator speeches without data to back up the elevator speech. All right, so on the second page, you'll see TOPS OPH and TOPS tech trends. So you're seeing, and again, we are definitely seeing that COVID impact because you've got a double whammy here. When you look at how many graduates are being processed, right? And if that decreases between 2019-20 and 21-22, then you've got a lower number of those students that are eligible. See, for 2014-15, all right, you have 54.6% of the students processed that were eligible. For 2021-22, that's down to 44.8%. All right, well, if you're not eligible, then that means that you were not meeting the criteria. So any loss of learning that we have not recovered from in COVID, that's going to impact those numbers. With TOPS Tech, you're seeing a bit of an uptake. Well, the inverse relationship that often isn't quite apparent is the majority of students, as you can see through the data that they'll talk about, are going for OPH awards. That's just what they want to do. They're going for a 4-year award. Now, if you go for that 4-year award and you complete that TOPS university curriculum, you could even make the grade point average on that TOPS university curriculum, but you have to have the ACT score that goes along with that. So if you don't have the ACT score, even though you completed that TOPS OPH curriculum, right? Then you are going to revert to the opportunity TOPS Tech award if you had a 17, 18, or 19. So it makes sense when you think about it that way, that if you have a decrease in students eligible for OPH, you're going to have an increase in students eligible for tech because it's a 17, 18, or 19. The interesting part is that you have an inverse relationship in the number who accept it. You got, let's say, 80% of the students that are going to accept TOPS OPH. you've got 20% of the students that are going to accept top tech. It's almost flipping on its head. But then the data that says, and where are those students going, really to us informs the policy decisions. Another thing on the bottom of page 2, then we'll move forward. When we look at, okay, what's the eligibility criteria? When you look at the average ACT score in the state of Louisiana, it's what, 18.2 or 18.4? So how exactly, if your average ACT is an 18.2, were you not expecting there to be a decrease in students eligible for a program that starts at a 20? But you have an increase in students eligible for a program that says 17, 18, or 19, you get this award. So it's not that they are not qualifying for it. It's like, do you want to accept that which you qualified for? So, okay, so when we go into the next page, you'll see what we're talking about, the average ACT scores of the eligible students, the acceptance rates, that's just what I just covered. And you'll notice that what we do in the middle of that page, and I'm talking about this one, you'll see all TOPS acceptance rates. Well, that's a great media standpoint. If you want to say, oh, a little bit over 60%. Just, there's liars and liars and statisticians. That's what that statement is. Because if you have a program with an 80% acceptance rate over here, and one with a 20% acceptance rate over here, and you put those together, well, the 20% is an outlier. So it's definitely going to artificially deflate the other. So we're like, you can look at it that way. But then from now on, we're telling you, opportunity performance and honors and TOPS Tech are not the same program. So why would you combine those, right? So we're starting to break that out to say, no, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because if you do that, you're not focusing on the heart of the problem, which is what to do about TOPS Tech and what is not working about TOPS Tech, because you're not changing the minds of students about what they want to do just because you wrote it that way. It's not a thing. So they're walking with their feet a different way. So, okay, Shauna and Connor, let's go to the trends on the TOPS Tech students and the students that don't accept the award. So we're at this page, and it starts with TOPS OPH and TOPS Tech.
Right, what we did was we hired Shauna as a data analyst here. Connor, who said is our other data person here. But what we looked at was, where are the students going? Okay, if they accept, we know, we pay them, we know what college they go to. If they don't accept, what happens? So we ran these numbers against the National Clearing House, we ran against Board of Regents database, and every database we could possibly fathom, Board of Regents non-credit, to see where are students showing up or are they showing up. And we found out if we look at the page, which I have to give a shout out to our graphics team. We did pretty charts, but they made these little things that like jump out at you, 15.5%. I mean, that tells you a lot right there, that those kids didn't go anywhere. 15.5%, or these are, I'm sorry, this is the totals. 50.5% didn't accept, and then it breaks it out. But if you go to the very next page, it starts breaking it out as to show you where. And once again, the little graphics, I do the charts. I can't do these little pretty little bubbles, which just spell it all perfect to you. We know 3.6 didn't accept it all. So that means they didn't go out of state. They didn't take an award that we gave them. So they're not in college anywhere. Are they in the workforce? We don't know. That's one of the things we are working with Board of Regents to try and start getting data with that, because they have an agreement with, I think it's revenue and workforce, to try and start getting some data to say, okay, if they're not going anywhere, these kids are on their welfare rolls, are they going straight to a job? What's happening to them? Well, we know less than 1% went into the non-credit, which we hear a lot about non-credit programs and stuff, but a lot of these kids didn't show up there either. So then we look at out of state, 8.6 went out of state, 8.6%. Doesn't sound like a huge percent. No, when you figure and you look at the numbers and stuff, a lot of them are the honor students, our top tier. So that's our brain drain that we talk about a lot. We should be losing those by brightest and That's the right. My kid had a chance to go out of state, she wants to stay home, but I'm like, they were offering her the world, yeah, the world. She's a little girl going into STEM, wants to be a computer science programmer, offered her the world. Luckily, she also got tops, so she stayed home with me, but those schools are offering it and the kids are taking it, so what do we do? Then if you look at the next page, you'll see 3.2% actually did go to Louisiana schools, but we didn't pay them tops. Well, why would we pay them tops if they went to Louisiana schools? Well, they were eligible. These are our eligible kids. Well, they went past the 1 year deadline. You only have 1 year to accept, or they went part-time. So those kids are not.
Their parents just don't accept them. That happens in each room.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, explain
I
that.
have students at my school, so we're a private institution, we have student parents that say, I've saved up for this, I'm paying for it. So I try to remind them that this is their tax dollars, but they choose not to take it. So there is that other handful
Okay, yeah,
in
they're
there.
not billed and we don't find it in a database somewhere.
Right, so they're either in-state, out-of-state, but I've seen over the last, only been at this school 5 years, I guess, 7 students. That's
a new-
happening,
I've not heard that.
and so,
They have specifically told you not to bill to get their top.
Yes, but this is high school, so this is high school, so
yeah, but like they're going into college and they're not going to accept the TOPS money. Don't ask you.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
that's not a thing.
If they don't apply, for it, they sign the waiver for FAFSA.
Oh, they signed it.
Yeah,
They did that.
They just did.
so they would never show up in our eligibility.
Yeah.
Never process.
So there are,
Process.
okay, but there are other people who are not taking it as well. Yeah.
Okay, so
they're
that
not
would
there.
be in the, which is a phenomenal point, because
Okay.
they're going to be in,
The not.
they're not gonna be there. Right, so you didn't process them because they didn't
It would
apply.
be a process, but we still require our girls to do the student hub, and so maybe they did that.
So they
roll
got
out.
the FAFSA or the online application for TOPS, and they got a waiver for filling out FAFSA and didn't choose to do
Okay.
the online application for TOPS. They're not even in that denominator because we never processed.
Because years ago, we used to be able to get from the Department of Ed exactly how many students graduated, and we know how many graduated, how many were processed.
Gotcha.
But now we just know how many were processed because
Okay.
with the privacy laws, unless they give us permission, yes, we never know about them.
Yeah.
So,
The thing is the consent.
Yeah. They don't have to give us permission to see their data, and that's probably never to do.
they would not show up in our process ever, so that would never be OCH.
Thank you for that.
Just a quick question for clarification. This 38 or 37 that's processed, that is not all the graduates in the state of Louisiana.
It's
That's
not.
just the ones that have built.
We got that.
That's just what that's saying.
And gave you
We used to be able to process just about everybody because we were able to get their data, like we got their education. If they fill out the FAFSA, we get their FAFSA. If they fill out the ACT, we get their ACT scores. So they didn't have to go through the extra hoop of giving us permission. But now with privacy laws, if they don't give us permission, they can even fill out the FAFSA and the ACT, but if they don't have their STS record, we don't process still. We're missing a piece of it. Can't process it without that.
we can't see them.
Right, so how many, what's the difference, I don't know, they might, I'm trying to read it real fast. What's the difference between how many students graduated in this 38 or 37?
We don't know.
Okay,
I don't know, because we don't have, like I said, we used to be able to know exactly how many students were graduating. But now we can tell you partially, like DOE can provide the 12th graders that were in private schools. But I don't know how many of those 12th graders actually graduated. I can go in and see the percentage of number of who graduated, but I don't have a whole number of 42,700 graduated. I know maybe 87% graduated. So we don't have a way to calculate those numbers because we just don't have the denominator.
Yeah, the tip form. It says on there that they're supposed to be filling it out in the 8th grade. And so I start with my 8th grade. I went down there to the presentations in the last month, beginning of this month. And so gave it out to them, explained to them exactly what it was. There's a lot of like legal jargon that parents don't really understand. And it's like, let me explain to you exactly what this is to the kids, and then the parents have questions or whatever. But that's what I started doing that then, because we have a box we have to check inside the
Yes, that's right.
system so that can happen, and then like we got a report. Beginning of the month from our person that does STS, and was like, hey, just let you know that this won't process, whatever this. That, going back to that, like, I feel like as a school counselor, I know in the private schools, they don't necessarily have to do that. I think they do, but they don't, like, it's not something that we have the consent form given to us. I think there has to be a push for that again, because like, there are some schools that are like, hey, I didn't even realize this, that the counselors in schools that have come into the system, like, not my school system, but just in general, that may not know that that's part of it.
Thank you for that.
That's a big part of our council.
It is.
That we do.
It is.
We can't force them to come to the council.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, like in the council, I'm just thinking about it right now, because, if they don't do it, they don't do it. But I can't, I know that there are some councils that are like, I didn't even know how to do this, like, I just think conversations, not within my district, because we pushed it, but.
It's good to know.
And people all the time, and I just.
That's very good.
We have covered, like, it requires us, LOSFA to cover consent every single year. So I have, for the past, like, we have covered consent in almost every single one of our top spring processing webinars. So, and I was looking over the content for that, have that coming up in March, and that's when, like, we cover that every single year in those webinars.
But it is, what we're looking at now is a deeper dive on the data, because of course it took a lot of time. But now we have to start looking at, okay, when we look at the high schools that have students for TOPS, what are your lowest number of students that are eligible for it, lowest numbers of students that accept it, and then go back and see if you can cross-reference, are the counselors from those schools engaging with us at all? Because if you're not coming to the trainings, it's not mandatory, it's not a law, we can't make you. We can provide the information, but is there a correlation between you're not engaging, which is why you don't know, which is that the reason? Or what are there other reasons? So that's definitely, we want to definitely make sure that we move along, but to call your attention to this part, because this is kind of the element in the middle of the room when you talk about the policy issues. The top 10 portion. This is, if 77.3% are not accepting it, that's when I said that almost 80%. Where are those students going? And I want to call your attention to that, Bob. Look at that 8.1% going out of state. Notice that 8.1% going out of state, even though that's not a huge number, notice how that's eerily similar to the 8.3, I think, percent that's going out of state for OPH, primarily your performance and honors. Now, and we had a heads up about this from a New Orleans legislator years ago that said out-of-state institutions are recruiting the top tech students, particularly those from limited income backgrounds, because Pell crosses state lines. And if you think about it, that makes sense when you think, if I was in the 77.3% that did not plan to accept what you were offering me, then what difference does it make if I go out of state? Because my Pell, that out of state institution, you know, you weren't, well, you know what, you're gonna get Pell here. Now they're not telling you, you're also gonna have out of state fees, and so you also went into loan debt. But the other telling issue is 17.3%. You don't see them anywhere. Definitely are those folks working. But look at this page, and this is the killer. This is the killer. That they are 51.1%. So 51.1% of 77% are enrolled somewhere in the state of Louisiana paying on their own. That's problematic. Which means, yes, you offer the money, yes, I need the money. But I don't want to take the money because the program of study I'm interested in is not covered by the support. So if you think about if TOPS Tech for a 2-year award, period. It pays for 2 years, wherever you can get admitted. If you take 51.1%, go ahead, Brett, you did it in your head. If you take 51.1% that
are enrolling anyway, and 20-some% that accepted it, you would flip the script immediately. Just saying. Like, if it's like where you get admitted, it's a 2-year award, we pay the first 2 years, you pay the last 2 years. Because I'm gonna tell you what you can enroll in might sound wonderful, but they're not taking it, and they're still taking on loan debt and paying on their own, and that's the majority. 51.1% will win you an election. You think about it, so that's one of our biggest.
And if you look at this, we're trying to right now do a deeper dive into, we know that, okay, part-time, we're not gonna pay, 1 year past anniversary, we're not gonna pay. But those kids who are in the ineligible programs or in local school, we're doing a deep dive into that data because we know Cox Tech pays nursing at some schools, but not all schools. Maybe it's because they only offer a baccalaureate, maybe it's they offer an associates like we were looking this morning. And we noticed Nichols, they have a associates in nursing. I know that because my mom graduated from it. Wait, we don't pay Cox Tech there, but nursing is in high demand. We know that. We pay it at BRCC, we pay it at LSUA, so why would we pay it at Nichols? So we're trying to do the deeper dive, we have to look at the data side by side and say, what schools should we be looking at to say, maybe these programs should be eligible, what programs should we be looking at the different schools, so that we can present it to the board of regents whenever they do the Cox Tech list and say, there's no reason why we're excluding some and not excluding others. It's not a very good advisory. It's board of regents and
LWC.
that create that they
And that
I'm on
meeting,
it, so.
that meeting should be, we've said,
we've asked.
we need you to.
Yeah, we've asked.
We have some things on as chair of our board.
I will, you know,
Have the information.
let me, you know.
And do an email, because we've done several, it says.
I mean, it's not to me, that's.
Students want to know.
Which ones I got, are we missing the nursing issue?
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, why we know there is a drastic shortage of nurses, I mean, with the amounts of money those people are making, and don't be wrong, they deserve it. I'm not gonna go through that and touch people's bodies, but I mean, why are we not letting every avenue be available to these students?
Traditionally, when advisory councils, how could they? A proposal, for, you know, why you think this program should be approved. It's usually a pretty,
It don't have, but
I can,
Yes, but again,
give you the data.
we can get the data from that.
because if you remember, back in the day, when this first started, the list, right? Nursing could have been, this was a real scenario, it could have been approved at 1 2-year school. And it wasn't on the list of no 2-year school.
Yeah, it's
But
just.
wait. Well, it's the same thing.
Yes.
And then there was a blanket that says, okay, we thought better of that. If it's approved at 1, it's approved at all. Well, see, it seems like now what we need is a definition of what is all. Right, it's all wherever there's an associate's degree in that area, and then that student can walk with their feet, because what are the guardrails? Can they get admitted to that institution? And if they can get admitted to that institution and they're eligible for an award, then it is a fair question why they can't use it.
Nichols, yes. I knew that because 2 year, they have an associate's in nursing and they also have baccalaureate.
But it just needs to be looked at as all
Yeah.
the 2-year programs that are offered. If that is the interim step, instead of saying, because again, to make it a 2-year award, you could either do that legislatively, or you could say, what's the list of approved programs? If it's a 2-year approved program, wherever it is. But again, that's not, that, we're just pointing out Captain Obvious. I understand the rule, but we understand what the student behavior is, and it is not changing.
Yeah, but we want to take that with ESN. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So
So-
LA Tech has to
Yeah.
So I was listening to the 51, right? And I'm thinking of a specific example right now, because 19 on the HPC, 3.9 EPA does not qualify. It decides they're gonna go do a bridge program. It's told they cannot do the bridge program because they have to go to the four-year institution, because they had to apply to the four-year institution. So therefore, they had to pay out of pocket, even though they were eligible, because the only available top tech eligible program at that school was not education. It was something way off, and they would have lost credit, and they were not going to do this. And so I'm looking at that, like, that's clearly what's happening. So if we can make these changes, like, not that it would be so close, but some of those students would have the opportunity to begin at least where it's in the past. But I mean, that's what's happening here. Like, I can tell you, I can probably list a whole lot of students off the top of my head that are like, this is their circumstance.
Our job is to make sure that policymakers know, I understand your rule, but this is the actual behavior of the students, which you cannot legislate, right? You try, but this is what they're doing. So if this is what they're doing, but yet they're racking up loan debt, and if they're not going to make the money to be able to pay that loan debt, that isn't a win-win, because they're leaving money on the table that they've earned. So that really is the reason we're doing the deep dive, to say, vote your conscience, do whatever it is you want on the policy side, but know that here's the data that shows you the deep dive on what's actually happening. So it's a favorite philosophy of mine, in a wonderful book I read called Canoeing the Mountains, that says, if you're a leader, you stand on the balcony, but you better listen to the floor. And so this is LOSFA listening to the floor saying, but that's what they're doing, right? So anyway, any more questions?
Well, that was not the Dr. Boston speaking, right?
Yes, should.
Okay, ours, programs to add. Yeah.
So any nudge
Send that up to this, so.
Louisiana has a lot, or they used to have a lot of policy advisory groups. Health Works Commission is another that early on, gave money, found money for stipends to increase the head count of people going into healthcare. We're back there again with huge healthcare shortages. Colleges also make decisions based on that, to do away with associate degrees. So maybe it's time to clue colleges back in to this, because not the Board of Regents necessarily, but private colleges have a lot more flexibility. They don't have to ask the Board of Regents permission to reinstitute an associate degree. We are back in there where we need healthcare workers now, and we're going to need a lot more. And this is so
One is open. There are no house tech students paid at private school because they don't offer any two-year degrees.
but they used to.
Right, so there's no reason, I mean, we have president who paid them there.
Right.
We used to pay, San Francisco, and it was
Right.
Yeah, so reads those programs, they can come back in, but.
Well, but they have to understand, not for me, but they need to understand, that's when you get something like the Health Works Commission, if it still exists. Now, they're very powerful groups, the Louisiana Nursing Association. They are very powerful. I mean, and they all are aware of this. It's becoming a numbers issue. There just aren't going to be, when I need them, that'll be sooner than most of you. We need them there and in this state, and I just don't know how. It's not, there are more pieces to go in the jigsaw than just one.
Well, and that's what you're trying to figure out, how we're going to map this out and how we're going to.
Yes.
And then what's up is, okay, let's look at this real quick.
You have this
I know.
now.
Nichols has a nurse. I know that because I have a family member who graduated. So let's see, okay, they're not approved. Let's see if we can figure out how many students were paid at the PH level, how many people were paid at the tech level, how many people were paid in nursing in general, how many weren't paid because they were a tech nursing. So we can present all of the different pieces of it to show, okay, you might not want to add it, but all these kids are missing out and they're still going because this is a needed program. This is a deserved degree. People make good money, they have good jobs. So why are we not?
People in Louisiana don't want to move. So I mean, if they can be where they're comfortable, we should be.
To your point right there, and here's another part of it that listen to my students. A lot of the two-year technical schools, they don't have, housing. So like if they can't commute like that cost, so like the 4-year institutions reinstituting the associate's degrees or whatever, like, and that would help out some of my students, because like they want specific programs. But I've had a kid tell me, these are my 3 options, and this one is in an area that I cannot get to, this one does not have any housing, this one, if I try to commute, it's gonna be an hour and a half. This is the closest one, and it's in Mississippi, because like they live in, north, like, not even in Kill, it's more rural, but it's real close to like USM, wouldn't be that far. And so like they are really considering going there versus going to somewhere in Baton Rouge or New Orleans because of the distance that they have to drive. And so, I mean, there are so many of these factors that it's like, I know that you want to push for the 4-year university because that is what would make maybe more money sometimes, but it's not that way anymore. And so the trends are changing with these students, like they really do want to access, higher education, but it's not financially working out. And those that are trying to pay are going into loan debt, and they're just not talking about it because, I mean, who talks about that kind of stuff these days, as they're young. But I mean, I had a student just yesterday that was considering the cost of having to go to college. It's like, I gotta take the ACT more time because if I could just get this much, I can get this from, like they were really trying to factor it out for themselves. And then talking to their classmates about it, they were like, oh goodness. And I mean, they're about to graduate, they're about to make it, we don't know how much money they're gonna be able to get from this. So there's all these like anxiety that's happening within high schoolers. Cannot imagine once they get out of there, like right now, what's happening with those students. So like, I would like to be part of that conversation if I can just share some of this, if they need to have real life conversations over the last 5, it's been 8 years that I've just listened to students. But if y'all need help with that, like I will gladly express.
Might have dropped your name.
Okay.
Might have done that.
Okay.
I think too, you gotta give students an alternative to the 4-year degree. We are in an administration workforce, it's not the line, we're trying to get people back to work, and so we've got to figure out a way to connect students to the workforce.
And it isn't that the money's not there, because you're starting off here saying, what about the money?
Right.
This is not a money issue.
Right.
The money is there, so it's like meet the students where they
And to
are.
that point, I think we've got to look at, the money is there for a traditional 2-year program, but it is not there for a traditional non-credit short-term program. That's the issue, I think, for some Thomas Tech students is that,
It
I mean, could be an issue, right? Is that there could be a student who could go into a short-term program, but they do not have the money for it because it is not Pell eligible and it's not Thomas Tech. I would like to also make sure, I understand healthcare is important, but we do have a huge construction area that is lacking. I just had a meeting this morning and they were saying that in Lake Charles area, there could be 10,000 plus workers here in the next 5 to 10 years in the construction trades. And so I think we've got to think about healthcare, but we've got to think about energy, we've got to think about construction and kind of where we're going as a state. You've got to be able to have programming, funding to support, both of those.
That starts back with us, and that's what the Department of Ed, and I think the Workforce Commission are already trying to do, the high wage, high demand jobs, like pulling it all together. And so, even, and it's not even at y'all's level, it is on our level, because if they can get NCCR core certified, then they can go take carpentry, then they can do electrician, they can do all of these things while they're in high school and be ready to go into the workforce. But there's not enough of the conversation happening yet there. I mean, it doesn't happen, but it happens in pockets.
I'm already working on that too, because I was just emailing our recruitment person. I was like, where are the 17? Like, how do we get to the 17? Right? And that does, it starts at the counselor level. It's great if I have programs, but if I'm not talking to you, just to be advising the students where to go, that's where so when it's like, we have like a breakfast with the counselors, we partner with LOSFA,
It's not just the counselors, we have to have teachers that are qualified to be able to do this, and they don't want to come out of the workforce because they're taking a huge pay cut. And so then they're like, they will adjunct on and that kind of thing. So being strategic about that part of it. And I said, we have teachers that do that, but not all schools do.
Yeah, correct.
And like ours is rural because we're a rural area, and that's what we are. The industry there is, but like that conversation, we can know all day long. The counselors can know it. It's not really us, it's the administration and the people that are around that needs that part. We can't we can't hire those people, like, well, we're like, we get it, we understand, because we will listen. We'll say, okay, this is how we need to do it, like, right now, I have the pre-educator pathway thing here, I'm thinking, why wouldn't we do something with, if we're doing this already, it's just the next step, like, as I'm listening to everything that you're saying, okay, if they wanna go to this school, but I think, yes, talk to the counselors, but then there's also something that happens just a little bit higher up that needs to, like the CTE part of it. In the Department of Ed and everything else, that's where it really drives the point home, because a lot of my students, I'm like, why do I have to get the certification? Okay, well, if you took the certification in college, even there, because like WorkKeys, we'll just use WorkKeys, that's not becoming part of the curriculum in some of the classes. Look, but if you take this right now and you make your gold or platinum now, you take this score and you already have your requirement met for this class, you get paid more money. Like I can break that down, but it's a slow integration into the industry. But our kids are taking it because it's also helping, because not just 17, 18, 19, if I get a WorkKey silver, then they're eligible, but then they don't, it's like I get you there, but I don't even know how to get you past there, because I'm sorry, you would have to go here for this or this or that. And our hands are tied beyond, guiding them past time.
And I think too, and I've shared with y'all, the case of my son, who was doing great, about to get his master plumbing thing, but his generation also, like, even if they have to go to school, they don't want to get into debt, but his, the person he works for actually goes into the Journeys to Careers class in 8th grade. But his question is, when you grow up, like, what do you want to do with, like, when you grow up, how many of you want to be a plumber? And nobody raises their hand. And it's like that same mentality that, if you're a plumber or an electrician or carpenter or you're in construction, that it's like a lower class, or it's like a lower status than if you have a 4-year degree. And a lot of them are making more money right now in the industry than somebody with a 4-year degree.
Chrissy, next question, how has the, I know you started working with the JAG program?
Yeah.
Jobs for America's Graduates. Has that helped with,
my school doesn't have that, but at a school I worked at before didn't have JAG. And it was just beginning, so I don't know, the results of
I think
that.
that's kind of high school straight into the job market, well, to the workforce. They did training while they're in high school.
See, let me tell you, they only did JAG 1 and 2 before I left, so the 3 and 4 I didn't get to when I was there, that's, well, I don't know, it might be. But like the question 6 that you're talking about, Rhonda, like they contracted with different people to come in and to speak about, different trades or industries in general, so I don't know.
We're gonna transition now to, if you're okay, transition to the cross collaborative, which is just a spotlight, because we want to make sure we've got our forum and make sure we get to our business activities. All right, so
If y'all have other questions, just.
yeah, and email, because we're certainly trying to find out where that 30-some% that are enrolled paying on their own, if we can figure out where they go and how well they do. That will be instrumental in saying they are doing well when they're paying on their own in these programs. So we've got the collaborative, the cross collaborative folks that are coming out.
Beginning. Yeah. All right. Thank you. So my name is April Berkman, and I work for CAS. With LOSFA, or in CAS for LOSFA. But today, the 4 of us are going to talk about a proactive measure that LOSFA took in helping our adult learners, particularly our MJ Foster Promise students. Today we have our past members, Danielle Shields, Haley Pellegrin, and then our student engagement member, Tanya Evans, to kind of share the journey with you on how Beyond LOSFA webinar got started and the impact that it made. There are many team members that help facilitate the event. LOSFA is very team oriented, so every time we have an initiative, everyone comes on board to assist. So we definitely want to thank everyone who participated, from providing technical assistance to doing the research for the resources, you know, in the background, to monitoring the chat during the webinar. Everyone deserves applause for making it so successful. But in particular, the ones that are going to talk to you today about kind of the transition of the spotlight, the webinar, because our MJ Foster Promise students have such diverse backgrounds and experiences, we thought it would be fun while we're sharing that journey with you, is that LOSFA team members have very diverse backgrounds and experiences. So to share with you kind of the impact that the Beyond LOSFA had on them as they help serve students as well. So we will have, next slide.
So on January 9th and 10th, LOSFA presented its Beyond LOSFA Identifying Additional Sources and Student Aid Support webinar. And so the purpose of this webinar was to provide resources that are common to students, but also resources that are not as familiar to students and that they're not aware of. So for instance, just working in financial aid and scholarships previously, just noting that, like, you know, the common forms of aid that students usually bring up are usually Pell Grant or student loans. But what we recognize is that there's obviously more resources out there that they're just not aware of. And so topics that we talked about included our lots of programs like STEP and HAB. It included the FAFSA application, and so along with that is Pell eligibility, as well as student loans, prioritizing college choice and institutional aid and how to apply for institutional aid, and then the benefits of holding a leadership role in LCCC as the Student Government Association.
In addition to that, we covered Louisiana Workforce Commission services, including WIOA. I usually refer to it as WIOA, and the Louisiana Registered Apprenticeship Program. We had guest speakers. We segued into the webinar with talking about LOSFA student services, not just our programs, but our comprehensive advising services, our 211 database. We highlighted our partnership with DCFS and promoting SNAP benefits, and also saying, you know, talking about private aid and reiterating the use of comprehensive services when you're searching for private aid, because that can be daunting for a student, especially one that's panicking, trying to figure out what they're going to do to pay for college. As you can see by this slide, Beyond LOSFA was a webinar that touched on every single lens of the LOSFA 2.0 model. And we did that with an approach of meeting the students where they were in their circumstances, trying to be proactive and helping them in every way we can.
Yeah, so it helps students identify the importance of college choice and the factors that play in a role in college selection. And it provided students with a workforce and college connection, like our LOSFA CAOs, that would serve as that central point of assistance for them, providing students with appropriate resources and guiding them to those resources and what's available to them. Next slide.
So why did we create the Beyond LOSFA webinar? We wanted to be proactive in serving our MJ Foster students after learning of the potential shortfall to the MJ Foster funds. This shortfall would affect over 6,000 students, including my own son, who was recently MJ Foster eligible. As a parent of an MJ Foster student, I wanted to tune in myself just so that I could know how to help my son navigate through whatever resources we were able to provide for him as he figured out what he would do without this funding, should it not become available to him. Next slide, please. All in all, the webinar turned out to be a pretty great success, especially when you consider that it was held during the winter holidays. Returning back to school at that time. Of the 6,000 students that were invited, 906 registered, 315 participated, and that came out to about 35% attendance rate. The webinar was offered like 2 days for obviously for the students. It lasted 1 hour each day, and information was taken each day. Next slide.
So as with all of our MJ Foster Promise virtual orientations and webinars, we try to keep our adult learners engaged from beginning to end. It keeps the webinar fun, but it also helps us gauge what they are, if they're understanding what's being presented, and if they're understanding the information and the message. So it also helps us learn a little bit more about the adult student population. And so there were several interactive polls throughout the webinar. So for each resource spoken about, the students were polled on if they wanted to know more information about that topic. So for instance, we had polls that asked if they were interested in more information about Chafee, if they needed FAFSA assistance, if they needed advising on college choice. And we also polled them on if they understood what staff benefits were, if they had applied or utilized those benefits before. And then this provided an opportunity for us to engage with those students post-webinar and share data with our external partners, which also gave them that opportunity to reach out to those students post-webinar.
And the results from those polls, overall, students were most interested in our STEP program, interested in our Connect with Your College virtual series, which serves as a virtual space where LOSFA provides that space for students or MJ Foster students to directly connect with their college's financial aid officers and their enrollment specialists. They're also highly interested in LWC, the WIOA and apprenticeships, and LOSFA's comprehensive services. One of the interesting things that we found out about the poll is that a majority of the students have applied for SNAP benefits in the past. Also, the majority of the students were not currently eligible for SNAP benefits, but the majority of the students still do not have a clear understanding of the application process to SNAP, of the eligibility requirements for SNAP. How does that process, how do you get, become eligible? So it gave us an idea of that disconnect message with SNAP benefits. That gives us an opportunity to go to the table with DCFF and kind of build that communication to better serve our students. We were able to, because the students gave us consent during the registration process, when they did answer the poll, we were able to provide our external agencies their contacts for them to reach out to them regarding the services that they were interested in. So we sent DCFS 109 contacts regarding interest in SNAP. 93 contacts were sent to WIOA, and 87 contacts were sent to the Louisiana Registered Apprenticeship Program. CASP, for all of those that were interested in LOSFA services or LOSFA programs, CASP reached out to those students directly, and the participants were not the only ones who received the follow-up email regarding the recording of the webinar and all the documents that were provided. We actually sent that follow-up email to all 6,000 plus MJ Foster eligible students. So even if they weren't able to attend, we still wanted them to have that resource. We continue bi-weekly because the MJ Foster application is still open. We're still getting applications. They're becoming eligible. And we have this shortfall coming potentially. We're still sending that communication with them, and along with that caution to also send these resources for them, in addition to contact information that they can reach out to us. So it is an ongoing endeavor. Next slide.
So in order for the event to be successful, there has to be an all approach and collaboration internally and with our external stakeholders. Next slide. I'll just highlight a few of the activities that our divisions and also our stakeholders took participated in during the webinar. So internally, SE and CAS, research external opportunities in student aid, while SG reviewed all available opportunities in-house. The CAS and SE division share responsibility in the technical operations of the webinar and the presentation itself. SE continues to work with participants through its comprehensive services, and CAS continues its communication efforts in providing context and services. IT provided editing services of the recording and also the link and linking it to the LOSFA's YouTube channel. Externally, we had LCTCS, DCFS, and of course the Louisiana Workforce Commission providing information on the services and opportunities. My background is in workforce development. We were able to have Tina Roper, who also serves as workforce director for Go Jobs, which is also the president of the Louisiana Workforce Board of Directors Association. And she provided the participants with specific WIOA eligibility requirements and where they be able to apply for that. Is the funding of last resort, which could definitely allow those participants to apply for that program. Next slide.
As you can see, the Beyond LOSFA webinar is more than a webinar. It is an ongoing resource in motion, where our external partners and internal divisions continue to provide services and resources to this segment of adult learners. DCFS is currently working to identify group insecurity, need for support on eligible college campuses. Viola is distributing the contact list. LOSFA provided 2 regional offices across the state, and the Louisiana Registered Apprenticeship Program has emailed each student detailed information on programs that are available in their area. LOSFA will continue to garner feedback from our partners as they start receiving results from those outreach efforts. Next slide. LOSFA continues to work with students who have reached out in the comprehensive advisory referral system. Since the webinar, LOSFA has received 15 referrals. 12 of those were directly referencing the MJ Foster program. Comprehensive advising services online referral saw a 67% increase during the week.
And you know, we talked about a lot of resources. So some of LOSFA's other programs came into the spotlight. Shortly after the webinar, we had a college reach out to us because a student reached out to them inquiring whether the JP award could be used for their non-credit workforce programming. So the college reached out to us, and we are currently in conversation with DCFS to find out if the short-term workforce programs could be eligible under the JP award. We continue to work with our MJ Foster Promise students. As mentioned before, the Beyond LOSFA webinar was more than just a webinar, right? It's ongoing momentum in preparing, promoting financial literacy and college access, equitable college access to all of our Louisiana residents. Hence, it just serves LOSFA's mission. There is help out there for adult learners. Unfortunately, they don't know all of the help, and they don't have, and what we're trying to provide is that central hub where they can go and experience that holistic student support and that college knowledge, which I stole from SG, Brittany Terrio, shared that information with me, and I love that term, but really to provide that information to our adult learners. And we are starting with our MJ Foster Promise students. So thank you.
Proud of the work that the team does, and extremely proud of the collaborative effort that you're seeing, because again, if you're gonna serve all y'all and be your captain doing that, you cannot do that by yourself or do one thing in the kitchen. So on that.
Questions?
Yeah, quick question. And this was brought up in light of the fun that we're all experiencing with confiscation. With the delay in ICERs, with the Department of Education continually updating the file formats and things like that, is there any confirmation that the systems will be ready from LOSFA side to receive those ICERs with their potential for delayed eligibility determinations at times? Because that's really my concern. Not sure.
No, well. We've been going through the file layout, we've been making the updates, so we're just ready to go when they're ready to send.
Gotcha.
So we have no plans to delay making students eligible for TOPS.
Gotcha. Well, and the only reason I said is because, so they put out an announcement 3 days ago that they updated a significant amount of the message class of the layout document. So the files that we've been using for testing to inbound, modifying ourselves and mocking whatever, no longer work because it has changed the file layout again. And so that's causing delays in our testing now. And so there was a question of, okay, well, if our major support is having issues making these updates, would there be any issues inbounding the ICER from the state side? And because of that, you don't have the fastest on file, therefore you make eligibility determinations.
I think there's a lot of time drags. We don't process how till the first week of June.
Right.
So you're still, that's 4 months out.
Yeah. And it was brought up, so I wanted to make sure.
Our IT stuff does all that program.
It's not outsourced.
So
That's
they
No,
And
I-
and the way that we have it laid out, we have what's called, like a data dictionary. And we can define the file and the fields that we need, easily.
Yeah.
So that we're not like, so we really just use the information that we need and then let that run through the normal.
Yeah, I didn't figure y'all use an internal vendor or anything like that, but I just didn't know. There was just a concern with the constant changes to the ICER and the delays that there could be potential delay for that state system, so
And
that gives me.
our back pocket plan, if all of that, because of Buster file, students can fill out the online application for COPS, get processed, and when the FAFSA is together and actually better FAFSA, then they can fill that out. There's no restriction on that, because that is going to give them the federal aid that application will not. So we do have a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
plan.
That's how we get involved.
We have a Hail Mary plan.
Everybody's doing that.
I'm sitting here a little bit less anxious because that was the plan that I would appreciate. And I do appreciate y'all sending the email now to the student because like there was a hang up in there and it said that they'd already had one on file. I was like, it didn't. And so come to find out, like it was just a glitch in our internet, went in and out. And so they got email, they forwarded it to me. I was like, okay, but there are about 10 students who filled out the old. So we're just waiting on them. Yeah.
And again, it'll be collective, it's all of us together saying, okay, you fill it out, we'll process you for TOPS. But when you get that email, when the FAFSA is available, you didn't fill it out, there's gonna be a bit of a surprise if you were eligible for federal aid and it's not there. So we'll just all continue to promote that message, but we do have we have another sub-plan.
Yeah, that was just concerned with the constant changes to the file.
Yeah.
So, as long as y'all got that.
That's very much.
Any other comments or questions before we head into new business? New business, this is regarding new start interest rates for 2023. That the LOSFA advisory board consider rulemaking to amend section 315 to add the applicable interest rates for the start savings program for the 2023 calendar year.
So we do these every year. One of the start statutes requires that we put it into that you see here on year 25 now because it's numbers 49 and 50. But all of the old interest rates are still in there, and this is for the principal protection fund and for the investment. We don't set these interest rates, the state treasurer does, we just lock them through.
All right, may I have a motion? Brad, a second? Any opposition? I got you, gotcha. Any opposition? Motion carries. The next is TOPS home study exceptions. Consider the request for exception to the TOPS statutory provision that requires a student to begin a home study program no later than the conclusion of the 10th grade. Those are in your packet. Questions for Robin related to those exceptions? We always have these.
No, home study exceptions were just allowed beginning after the 21 legislature session. It was that year.
We had to deny.
I know, I yeah, we did, but I was like, no, and I think it was the 22 session. It was 22 legislative session, but we just didn't have any once it was approved, so I
feel like we're having a lot.
We had to deny the students because you had no legal capacity to approve them.
Right.
And Robin sends lists to the legislature each year, like, did you know? And that doesn't mean that they're gonna address, but this is one that someone finally said, yeah, we'll address that.
Question, Robin, how do you figure grade point averages, those kinds of things, eligibility for by grade point when you have 3 years of high school and then one final year?
Oh, they don't have a.
I know, but she went 3 years of high school and one semester of home study. Is it theoretically possible, and I am not talking about the student, that I really messed up in 3 years of regular high school, and then I do home study, so how do my grades count in high school that I didn't apply anything, and now if I graduated or not graduated as a home study student?
Well, that was initially the concern and why they said students have to be in our high school for 2 years.
Right.
And I honestly do not know how to answer that specific question. I know that when they go into study, they are to provide us with a letter saying that they were in good standing at the school they were at, so they could not be in any academic or disciplinary deficits. They couldn't have those numbers. So when we process them, if they've ever been in a traditional brick and mortar school, they do have to provide us with that. But not the rest. We don't, you know.
No, I just, no.
Different requirements, it's a little bit different, and it is spelled out. Like the ACT score has to be higher, like that, right?
There are 2 bills,
I saw that.
2 bills to remove that and make it the same.
Yes. They are the executive bill filed by 2 different legislators.
And I have a lot of friends who home study, and the reason they do is because they're like, you know, they get to choose their curriculum in the state of Louisiana when they go to home study, and it doesn't matter if they're non-seeking, what's it called, not seeking state approval, or if they're like, because you can do not seeking state approval and you're quote a non-registered non-public with Louisiana Board of Education, or your home study. But a lot of them, they just do it so that they can choose their children's curriculum. But, you know, the board told me one time too, but you know, if you have a home study child and they're throughout high school and you have to have a transcript to be admitted to college, you just gotta go down there and give them all A's because it's your child. Like, and now a lot of my home study friends said, no, we really don't do that. We give them the grade that they actually earned. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, always, yeah.
I just see if some of the legislation passes as proposes, that opens up more public money for private schooling and homeschooling through the state. I can see this becoming a much larger area.
It already is.
Yes, I can see it growing because that's a big push for educational savings.
And the Louisiana Department of Education does publish the number of students they have in home study every single year. And if you looked at the chart, like especially since COVID, the rise in home study students in Louisiana is up there.
So this will become higher ed's problem. I don't know, but it's if the educational savings accounts go through with it, and I think the probability they're going to be more that are being that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, motion to approve. Amy, motion second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposition, anybody opposed? Okay, now everybody say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And final is consider the requests for exception to the TOPS regulatory provisions that require students to remain continuously enrolled and to earn the annual credit hours required during the academic year. I've seen those in your packet as well. Any discussion around the exceptions? Motion to approve the TOPS exceptions. Lindsay, and motion second. I'll second. Christine. All in favor, say aye. I'm doing that wrong. It's been a very long day. Either way, all in favor, say aye. Motion. No. Our next meeting date is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. Any other comments or questions you'd like to say before we adjourn today? Motion to adjourn. Radmeyer's.
Can we get their pins and everything?
Yes.
They've already got it.